4 German shepherds, was crying at the edge of a bridge. What baby did next left everyone in tears. The sound of 4 dogs crying in unison at 3 in the morning isn't something you forget. What happened next will leave you breathless. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Sarah Mitchell's hands trembled on the steering wheel, not from the cold October fog that wrapped around Riverside Bridge like a burial shroud. Not from exhaustion after her 12-hour shift at Mercy Hospital. The trembling started the moment she saw them. 4 massive German shepherds standing at the bridge's edge, their heads thrown back in a chorus of grief so profound it made her chest ache. "Mom?" Tommy's voice floated from the back seat, small and certain. "Stop the car." She almost didn't. Almost kept driving past whatever tragedy had gathered these dogs here at this ungodly hour. But something in her 5-year-old son's voice, not fear, not curiosity, but recognition, made her foot find the brake. The car rolled to a stop 20 feet from the dogs. They didn't scatter, didn't even turn. They stood in a perfect circle, their cries rising and falling like waves against stone. "Tommy, stay in the car." "They need us, Mom." "I said stay." But Tommy had already unbuckled his seatbelt. His small fingers worked the door handle with practiced ease. Sarah lunged for him, but he slipped out into the fog before her hand could close on his jacket. "Tommy!" The dog stopped crying. All 4 heads turned in perfect synchronization. 8 amber eyes fixing on the small boy, who stood there in his dinosaur pajamas and light-up sneakers. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. These were big dogs, shepherd dogs, guard dogs, the kind that could... Tommy walked toward them. "Baby, please!" Sarah scrambled out of the car, her nurse's instincts screaming danger. "Don't move! Just come back to Mommy." But Tommy kept walking, his steps sure despite the slick pavement. The largest dog, a magnificent creature with a silver-streaked muzzle, lowered its head, not in threat, in deference. "He says it's okay, Mom." Tommy's voice carried through the fog. "Atlas says you can come look." Atlas? How did he know the dog's name? Sarah moved forward on legs that felt disconnected from her body. The fog parted around the dogs like curtains, and she saw what they'd been guarding. An infant carrier, pink blanket, tiny fingers visible at the edge. Her training kicked in. Sarah rushed forward, no longer caring about the dogs. They parted for her, creating a path straight to the carrier. Inside, wrapped in layers of fleece despite the cold night, was a baby girl. 6 months old, maybe 7. Her chest rose and fell steadily. Alive, warm. A note was safety pinned to the blanket. Sarah's fingers shook as she unfolded it. "Please protect her. They know what to do." "Mom?" Tommy stood beside the largest dog now, his small hand resting on its massive head. "Her name is Emma." "How do you—" Sarah's question died in her throat. The dog, Atlas, was looking at her son with an expression she'd only seen in one other creature. Her grandmother's old collie, the day before it died, saying goodbye. The other 3 dogs moved closer. Their collars caught the streetlight. Storm, Shadow, Luna. 4 guardians who'd somehow known to be here, known to wait, known to cry until someone stopped. Sarah lifted the carrier carefully. The baby stirred but didn't wake. "We need to get her to the hospital." "No!" Tommy's voice cracked with urgency. "Atlas says no hospital, not yet. Bad people there." "Tommy, she needs—" The sound of an engine made them all freeze. A black SUV crept through the fog, its headlights off. Atlas stepped in front of Tommy. Storm and Shadow flanked Sarah. Luna positioned herself behind them all, ears flat, a low growl building in her throat. The SUV slowed. Sarah could see nothing through its tinted windows, but she felt eyes on them, watching, calculating. The vehicle stopped 50 feet away. Atlas barked once, sharp, commanding. The SUV's engine revved. For a moment, Sarah thought it would accelerate toward them. Then it reversed, disappearing back into the fog as silently as it had come. "Get in the car!" Sarah's voice came out steady despite the ice in her veins. "Now!" They moved as a unit, woman, child, baby, and 4 dogs. Sarah secured the carrier in the back seat next to Tommy. The dogs arranged themselves around the car, Atlas at the front, Storm and Shadow at the sides, Luna watching their backs. "They're coming with us," Tommy said. Not a question. Sarah started the engine. In her rearview mirror, she watched the dogs fall into formation behind the car as she pulled away. They ran with the focused intensity of soldiers, keeping pace even as she accelerated. 3 blocks from the bridge, her phone rang. The hospital. "Sarah? Thank God. Don't come in today." It was Janet, the head nurse. Her voice was strange, tight. "There's been an incident. Police are here. They're looking for someone who might have taken a baby from the maternity ward." Sarah's eyes flicked to the carrier. The baby slept on, unaware of the danger she'd escaped. Or the danger still hunting her. "Janet, Just stay home, Sarah. Stay safe. And if you see anything unusual, call the police immediately." The line went dead. Sarah pulled into her driveway 10 minutes later. The dogs were still there, not even panting despite the 3-mile run. They spread out around the property, taking positions she hadn't directed, guarding points she wouldn't have thought to guard. "How do you know them, Tommy?" She carried Emma's carrier while her son walked beside her, his hand never leaving Atlas's fur. "Tell me the truth." Tommy looked up at her with those serious brown eyes that sometimes seemed decades older than 5. "I dream about them. Every night for..." He counted on his fingers. 27 nights. 27? Since the lady with sad eyes started visiting. He pushed open their front door. She said they would come, said they would bring Emma, said we had to keep her safe until the truth comes out. Sarah's skin prickled. "What lady, baby?" "The one who died." Tommy said it so matter-of-factly that Sarah's knees nearly buckled. "She says her name is Maria. She says the bad people killed her because she knew about the babies." The carrier suddenly felt heavier in Sarah's arms. The baby, Emma, opened her eyes. They were the brightest blue Sarah had ever seen, like fragments of summer sky. She didn't cry, just looked up with an expression of absolute trust. "We should call the police," Sarah said, but even as the words left her mouth, she remembered Janet's strange tone. The SUV in the fog, the note's desperate plea. Atlas padded into the house and positioned himself by the window. Storm took the back door. Shadow disappeared upstairs. Checking rooms, Sarah realized. Luna stayed with Tommy and Emma, her body a warm wall of protection. "Not yet," Tommy said, echoing her doubts. "Maria says not yet. She says she'll show us what to do." Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to be the rational adult who called authorities and followed proper procedures. But she'd worked enough night shifts to know that sometimes the system failed. Sometimes the very people meant to protect were the ones doing harm. She settled Emma's carrier on the coffee table and really looked at the baby for the first time. There was something familiar about her features, something that nagged at the edge of recognition. "Tommy, what else did Maria tell you?" Her son sat cross-legged on the floor, Luna's massive head in his lap. "She said Emma is special, said there are people who steal special babies and sell them to families who don't ask questions." She tried to stop them. His voice dropped to a whisper. "That's why they made her car crash." Sarah's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, instinct maybe, or the way Atlas's ears perked forward, made her accept the call. "You have her." A woman's voice, raw with exhaustion and fear. Please tell me you have my baby." "Who is this?" "My name is Lisa. I left her on the bridge. The dogs, did they? They protected her." Sarah moved to the window, scanning the street. "She's safe." A sob crackled through the phone. "Thank God. Thank Maria." "You knew Maria?" "She was trying to help me. Before the accident. She said if anything happened to her, the dogs would know what to do. Said they'd find someone who could help." "Why didn't you go to the police?" Silence stretched between them. When Lisa spoke again, her voice was barely audible. "Because some of them are involved." The adoption ring. Maria had proof, but after she died, I couldn't find it. All I had were the dogs. She trained them to recognize certain people. Good people. People who would protect instead of profit. Sarah thought of the SUV in the fog, the strange call from the hospital. Someone's looking for Emma. They've been looking since she was born. I've been hiding, moving, trying to stay ahead of them. But last night, they found me. I had to make a choice, run with Emma and risk them catching us both, or trust Maria's plan. The dogs, Sarah said, understanding flooding through her. They were waiting for someone specific. For you? Maria mentioned you once, said she'd seen you at the hospital, how you fought for a patient when everyone else wanted to give up. Said you had a son who was special. Sarah looked at Tommy, who was now lying beside Luna, his eyes closed but his lips moving as if in conversation. How did Maria know about my son? I don't know everything. But she said some children are born with gifts, abilities to sense things others can't. She said your son would understand the dogs, that they'd recognize each other. Atlas suddenly stood, his body rigid. Storm and Shadow appeared from their posts, converging on the living room. Luna rose, gently moving Tommy behind her. Someone's here, Sarah whispered. Hide, Emma, Lisa's voice turned urgent. Whatever happens, hide her. I'm coming, but I'm still an hour away. The dogs will protect you, but you have to trust them. Trust your son. He knows things. Maria made sure of it. The line went dead. Sarah grabbed Emma's carrier and headed for the stairs, but Tommy caught her hand. Not up, he said. They'll look up. Maria says, go to the place where we keep Christmas. The basement storage room. Of course. They moved quickly, Tommy leading the way with surprising confidence for a child who usually needed a nightlight. The dogs created a moving perimeter around them, their bodies tense, ready. The doorbell rang just as they reached the basement door. Mrs. Mitchell? A man's voice, professionally pleasant. Police. We need to ask you some questions about an incident at the hospital. Sarah recognized the voice. Officer Dale. He'd brought in drunk drivers to the ER, flirted with the nurses, always seemed friendly. But Atlas was growling, a sound that started in his chest and rolled out like thunder. Mom? Tommy whispered. He's lying. Maria says he's one of the bad ones. The doorbell rang again, then knocking. Mrs. Mitchell, we know you're home. Your car's in the driveway. We just want to talk. Sarah made a decision that went against every lawful instinct she had. She stayed silent. The knocking got louder. Open up, or we're coming in. Atlas moved to the front door, followed by Storm. Shadow and Luna stayed with Sarah and the children, herding them deeper into the house. Tommy, take Emma to the basement. Lock the door. Don't come out until I say, Mom, go! Tommy grabbed the carrier with strength that surprised her, Luna beside him as they disappeared down the stairs. Sarah heard the lock click. The front door shook. They were trying to force it. Atlas barked, a sound that could have woken the dead. Storm joined in. Through the window, Sarah saw two uniformed officers backing away from the door, hands moving to their weapons. Control your dogs, Mrs. Mitchell, or we'll have to put them down. Sarah's mind raced. If these were real police on legitimate business, resisting would end badly. But if Lisa was right, if they were part of the adoption ring, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, a photo. It was a newspaper clipping from 6 months ago. Social worker dies in suspicious single car accident. Maria Hartley's face smiled from the article. But it was the background of the photo that made Sarah's blood run cold. Officer Dale stood behind Maria at what looked like a community event, his hand on her shoulder, his smile not reaching his eyes. Another text, this one from 3 months ago. Infant disappears from hospital, staff questioned. And there was Dale again, leading the investigation, a third text, 2 months ago. Body of missing mother found, baby still missing. Dale, always Dale. The door splintered. Atlas lunged at the first officer through the door. Not Dale, a younger man Sarah didn't recognize. The dog's jaws closed on the man's arm, not breaking skin through the uniform, but holding him immobile. Storm circled Dale, who had his hand on his weapon but hadn't drawn it yet. Call them off, Dale said, his friendly mask slipping. You have no idea what you're interfering with. I'm starting to get a pretty good idea, Sarah said, her phone recording everything. How many babies, Dale? How many mothers? His face darkened. You don't understand. These are unwanted children, addicts' babies, teen mothers who can't cope. We're giving them better lives. By selling them? By placing them with families who can provide for them. Families who've been waiting years through legal channels that failed them. And Maria found out. Dale's jaw tightened. Maria was an idealist. She didn't understand that sometimes the system needs adjustment. So you killed her. That was an accident? But his eyes said otherwise. Atlas released the younger officer, who scrambled backward. The dog positioned himself between Sarah and Dale, lips pulled back to reveal teeth that could tear through bone. "Here's what's going to happen," Dale said, his hand still on his gun. "You're going to give us the baby. We'll say we found her abandoned. No connection to you. You go on with your life. Everyone wins. Except Emma's mother. Her mother's a nobody. A waitress who got knocked up by a married man. The baby will have a better life with the family who's already paid." He caught himself. "Paid for her," Sarah finished. "Like she's property." Dale drew his gun, pointing it at Atlas. "Last chance?" Sarah heard something then. Sirens. Multiple sirens, getting closer. Dale heard them too. His face paled. "What did you do?" Sarah held up her phone. "Live-streamed everything to my Facebook. 12,000 viewers and climbing, including, I'm betting, some real cops." It was a lie. She didn't even have Facebook. But Dale didn't know that. He turned to run, but Storm was there. Then Shadow appeared from the hallway. The three dogs formed a triangle around him, not attacking, but not letting him move. The younger officer was already on his knees, hands behind his head. "I didn't know," he kept saying. "I swear I didn't know." He said we were investigating a kidnapping. The sirens screamed into the driveway. Real police this time. Sarah recognized Detective Morrison, who'd worked with the hospital on several cases. She was clean. Maria's texts had confirmed it. "Sarah?" Morrison called from outside. "You okay in there?" "We're okay," Sarah called back. "But you're going to want to arrest Officer Dale. And bring a lot of backup." I think this goes deep. The next hour was chaos. Dale in handcuffs, screaming about lawyers. The younger officer giving a statement about suspicious orders he'd been given. Emma safe in Sarah's arms while crime scene techs processed everything. Through it all, the dogs never left their posts. Detective Morrison sat with Sarah on the couch, notepad out, but her expression gentle. Start from the beginning. Sarah told her everything. The bridge, the dogs, the note, Tommy's dreams about Maria, the SUV in the fog, Lisa's call. Morrison's expression grew more troubled with each detail. "We've been investigating disappearances from 3 hospitals, always poor mothers, always babies that supposedly died or were stillborn, but no bodies were ever properly processed. How many? At least 12 in the last year, maybe more." Sarah held Emma tighter. "And Dale? Was always conveniently involved. We suspected someone in the department was dirty, but we couldn't prove it until now." Tommy appeared at the top of the stairs, Luna beside him. "Is it safe?" "Yeah, baby, it's safe." He came down slowly, his eyes taking in the police, the handcuffed officers being led away, his mother holding Emma. "Maria says thank you." Morrison looked at Tommy sharply. "Maria Hartley?" Tommy nodded. "She says to check Dale's house. Under the garage. That's where he keeps the files." Morrison stood. "How could you possibly know that?" Tommy shrugged. "She tells me things. In dreams. She says she couldn't rest until the babies were safe. All of them." Sarah expected Morrison to dismiss this as childhood fantasy. Instead, the detective knelt in front of Tommy. "What else does Maria tell you?" "There's a lady at the hospital. She wears purple scrubs. She tells the bad people when babies are born to mothers who won't be missed." Sarah's stomach dropped. Purple scrubs. Pediatric nurses wore purple scrubs. Oh, God. Morrison was already on her phone, barking orders. Within minutes, they had a name. Nancy Reeves. She'd been on shift for every disappearance. "We need to move fast," Morrison said. "If she knows we're on to Dale," Atlas barked. Once. Sharp. Everyone turned to look at him. The dog was at the window, his body rigid. Storm, Shadow, and Luna joined him, all focused on something outside. A white van had pulled up across the street. The engine was running, but no one got out. "That's Nancy's van," Sarah whispered, recognizing the dented bumper from the hospital parking lot. Morrison drew her weapon. "Everyone stay inside." But Tommy was already moving toward the door. "No," he said with that strange certainty. "The dogs need to handle this." Maria says if Nancy sees police, she'll run, and you'll never find the others. Others? The babies she has now. 3 of them. She's keeping them at the old Riverside clinic until the buyers come tomorrow. Morrison hesitated. It went against every protocol, but something about the boy's absolute confidence made her pause. Atlas looked at Tommy, then at Morrison. The dog's message was clear. Trust us. This is insane, Morrison muttered, but she lowered her weapon. What's the plan? Tommy opened the front door. The 4 dogs filed out, moving with the coordinated precision of a military unit. They didn't run toward the van. Instead, they spread out, creating a wide circle that slowly tightened. Nancy must have seen them coming. The van's engine revved, but Luna was already behind it. Storm and Shadow flanked the sides. Atlas stood directly in front, immovable as a mountain. The van's door opened. Nancy stepped out, her face pale but determined. She had something in her hand. Sarah couldn't see what from this distance. Atlas barked. The other dogs joined in, their voices creating a wall of sound that had neighbors coming out of their houses. Nancy raised her hand. A gun. No! Sarah started forward, but Morrison held her back. Tommy stood perfectly still. It's okay, he said. Watch. Atlas charged, not at Nancy, past her. The woman spun, confused, and in that moment of distraction, Storm hit her from the side. Not hard enough to injure, just enough to knock her off balance. The gun flew from her hand, skittering across the pavement. Shadow retrieved it, carrying it carefully in his mouth back to Morrison, who stood slack-jawed on the porch. Nancy tried to run, but Luna was there. Then Storm, then Atlas. They herded her like sheep, driving her toward the house where Morrison waited with handcuffs. The babies, Nancy gasped as Morrison cuffed her. Please, I wasn't going to hurt them. I just needed the money. My daughter, she needs surgery. Insurance won't cover it. Where are they? Morrison demanded. Riverside Clinic, 2nd floor. They're safe, I swear. I've been taking care of them. Morrison was on her phone again, sending units to the clinic. Within minutes, confirmation came back. 3 infants, all healthy, all reported as deceased at various hospitals over the past week. Sarah sank onto the porch steps, Emma still in her arms. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her shaky and exhausted. Tommy sat beside her, and immediately all 4 dogs converged on them, creating a protective circle of fur and warmth. How? Morrison asked, looking at the dogs, at Tommy, at the impossible thing she'd just witnessed. How is any of this possible? Maria trained them, Tommy said simply, but not just with regular commands. She gave them something more: purpose, promise, love, and when she died, she made sure they'd find us. But how did you know? The dreams? Tommy looked up at the detective with those 2 old eyes. Some people are just connected, like radio stations. Maria needed someone to hear her, and I was listening. A car pulled up fast, braking hard. A woman stumbled out, mid-30s, exhausted, desperate. Lisa. She saw Emma in Sarah's arms and collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Sarah stood, walking slowly to the woman who'd trusted strangers with her most precious thing. She's okay, she said softly, placing Emma in her mother's arms. She's perfect. Lisa held her daughter like she was made of spun glass and steel simultaneously, fragile and unbreakable. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. The dogs watched this reunion with what Sarah could only describe as satisfaction. Atlas's tail wagged slowly. Storm lay down, finally relaxing. Shadow and Luna bookended Tommy, who was smiling for the first time since this all started. There's more, Lisa said, looking up at Morrison. Maria left me something before she died. Said to only give it to someone I trusted completely. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a flash drive. She said it has everything: names, dates, transactions, the whole network. Morrison took it like it was made of gold. This could break the entire ring open, not just locally, nationally. Maria knew she was in danger, Lisa continued. That's why she prepared. The dogs, the evidence even. She looked at Tommy. Even finding someone who could hear her after she was gone. The sun was rising now, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Neighbors had gathered, whispering among themselves, recording with their phones. Tomorrow, this would be everywhere. The story of 4 dogs who saved babies, of a boy who heard the dead, of a mother who risked everything for truth. But right now, in this moment, it was just them. A makeshift family brought together by tragedy and held together by hope. "What happens to the dogs?" Tommy asked Morrison. The detective looked at the 4 German shepherds, who looked back at her with calm intelligence. "Technically, they're evidence, but," she saw Tommy's face crumble, "but I think they've earned the right to choose where they go." As if understanding, Atlas padded over to Tommy and lay down, his head on the boy's lap. Storm settled beside Sarah. Shadow positioned himself near Lisa and Emma. Luna sat equidistant from all of them, the guardian of guardians. "I think they've already chosen," Morrison said softly. Over the next few hours, the full scope of the operation unfolded. The flash drive contained meticulous records, 15 hospitals across 3 states, 43 babies sold over 2 years, a network that included doctors, nurses, social workers, and, yes, police officers. Nancy Reeves broke completely, providing names in exchange for a lighter sentence. She'd been recruited by Dale, promised enough money to save her daughter's life. The moral weight of her choices had been eating her alive, she said. Part of her was relieved to be caught. The 3 babies from the clinic were reunited with their mothers, young women who'd been told their children had died during delivery. The security footage from those deliveries had been mysteriously corrupted, but Nancy's testimony filled in the gaps. Dale refused to talk, demanding a lawyer, but the evidence was overwhelming. Maria had been brilliant in her documentation, creating a trail that led directly to him and his associates. She knew, Morrison told Sarah later, as crime scene techs processed the house. Maria knew they were onto her, so she set up a failsafe. The dogs were trained to find someone trustworthy if something happened to her, someone with a child who had abilities. "You believe that? About Tommy?" Morrison looked at the boy, who was showing the dogs something in the backyard, all 5 of them focused on a spot near the fence. "After today? I believe in a lot of things I didn't yesterday." Lisa had been taken to a safe house with Emma, but not before exchanging numbers with Sarah. "You saved her life," she said. "I can never repay that." "You don't need to," Sarah replied. "Just love her. That's all any child needs." But even as the immediate danger passed, questions remained. How had Maria known about Tommy? How had she trained the dogs to recognize him specifically? And most unsettling, what else had Maria known that she'd taken to her grave? The answer came 3 days later, in the most unexpected way. Sarah was home with Tommy, both of them given leave from work and school while the investigation continued. The dogs had refused to leave, and no one had the heart to force them. They'd become fixtures in the house, each claiming a spot, but always alert, always watching. Tommy was in the backyard with them when he suddenly stood up, his face pale. "Mom!" Sarah rushed outside. "What is it?" "Maria says to dig here." He pointed to a spot near the old oak tree. "She says she left something for us." Sarah wanted to dismiss it, but she'd learned to trust her son's strange gift. She got a shovel from the garage and began to dig, the dogs watching intently. 2 feet down, the shovel hit something hard, a metal box wrapped in plastic. Inside was another flash drive and a letter. Sarah's hands shook as she read it aloud. "To whoever finds this, if you're reading this, then my plan worked. The dogs found you and you listened. I'm sorry for the burden I've placed on you, but there was no one else I could trust. My name is Maria Hartley, and by the time you read this, I'll be gone. They're getting suspicious of me, and I know what happens to people who get in their way. But I couldn't let them continue stealing children, selling hope to desperate families while destroying others. The flash drive contains everything I couldn't put in the official files, the offshore accounts, the international connections. This is bigger than just our city. There's a network that spans countries, selling children like commodities. I've identified the major players, but I needed someone clean, someone they'd never suspect, to bring it to light. I chose you because of your son. I know this sounds impossible, but I've seen him in my dreams. Some call it psychic, some call it gifted. I just know that certain children are born with the ability to bridge worlds. Your son is one of them. I've been sending him messages, preparing him, though he probably thought they were just dreams. The dogs are special too. They're from a line bred for military and police work, but their trainer, my friend James, always said they were different. They bond not just with people, but with purposes. I've given them the purpose of protecting children. As long as they live, they'll guard those who need it most. There's one more thing. Check Dale's mother's house. She doesn't know what her son does, but he uses her basement for meetings. There's a hidden room behind the water heater. That's where you'll find the list of buyers. Some of them very powerful people who won't want their names revealed. Thank you for being the light in the darkness. Thank you for saving them. Maria. Sarah looked at Tommy, who was nodding as if he'd heard every word before. She's been telling me this, he said, in pieces, like a puzzle. Morrison arrived within minutes of Sarah's call. The flash drive contained enough evidence to trigger a federal investigation. The hidden room in Dale's mother's basement was exactly where Maria said it would be, containing not just names, but photographs, contracts, even recordings of negotiations. The list of buyers read like a who's who of the wealthy and influential. Tech executives who'd been denied adoptions, politicians whose backgrounds didn't pass scrutiny, of foreign dignitaries who wanted American babies for status. This is going to explode, Morrison said, looking at the evidence. We're talking congressional hearings, international incidents. Maria didn't just document a local ring, she exposed a global market. But the most shocking revelation came from a video file buried deep in the drive. It was Maria, recording herself just days before her death. If you're watching this, she said, looking directly into the camera, then they succeeded in silencing me. But they didn't win. The children are what matter. They always have been. I've spent months preparing for this possibility. The dogs know what to do. They'll find someone with a pure heart and a child who can hear beyond the veil. Trust them. Trust the process. And please, remember that I tried. I tried to save them all. The video ended with Maria looking off camera, as if hearing something. Her face paled. They're here, she whispered. Then the recording stopped. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. This woman, this stranger, had given her life to protect children she'd never meet. And somehow, impossibly, she'd continued her mission even after death. The investigation exploded across media outlets within days. The baby selling ring that shocked America. Hero dogs save stolen infants. The boy who heard the dead. Sarah tried to shield Tommy from the attention, but some things couldn't be avoided. Reporters camped outside their house. Requests for interviews flooded in. Everyone wanted to know about the boy who could speak to the dead and the dogs who'd prevented dozens of illegal adoptions. But Tommy remained remarkably unaffected. Maria says it will calm down, he told his mother one evening, Atlas's head in his lap. She says the important part is done. The babies are safe. Is she still here? Tommy considered this. Not like before. She's quieter now, happier. She says she can rest soon, once the last baby is found. The last baby? Tommy nodded. The first one they took. Before they got organized. Dale's practice run. Maria says she's been looking for her for 2 years. This information led to a cold case from 2 years ago. A teenage mother who'd insisted her baby was stolen from the hospital nursery, but who'd been dismissed as hysterical. The girl had died by suicide 6 months later, unable to bear the loss and the disbelief. The child, a girl named Hope, was found living with a wealthy couple in Seattle who'd been told she was legally adopted from a mother who'd died in childbirth. DNA testing confirmed she was the stolen baby. The couple, devastated but understanding, agreed to shared custody with the biological father, who'd never known he had a daughter. It was the final piece of Maria's puzzle. That night, Tommy woke Sarah gently. "Mom, come see." She followed him to his window. The 4 dogs were in the backyard, sitting in a circle, heads tilted toward the sky. The moon was full, casting silver light across their fur. "What are they doing?" "Saying goodbye," Tommy said. "Maria's leaving now. She says thank you. She says the dogs will stay because their job isn't done. There will always be children who need protecting." Sarah saw nothing but the dogs and the moon, but Tommy saw more, or perhaps felt more. A presence warm and grateful that touched his mind one last time before fading like morning mist. "Is she gone?" Sarah asked. Tommy nodded. "She's at peace." The dogs lowered their heads in unison, as if ending a prayer. Then Atlas stood, shook himself, and trotted back toward the house, the others following. Whatever vigil they'd been keeping was complete. In the weeks that followed, life slowly, found a new rhythm. The media attention faded as newer stories took precedence. The trials began, with Dale and Nancy and dozens of others facing justice. The adoption ring was dismantled piece by piece, its victims compensated, its architects imprisoned. Lisa and Emma visited often. The baby seemed to recognize the dogs, reaching for them with chubby fingers, giggling when Luna gently licked her face. Lisa had found a job at a local daycare, starting fresh in a place where her story was one of survival, not shame. "I dream about Maria sometimes," she told Sarah one afternoon. "Is that weird?" Sarah looked at Tommy, playing with Emma and the dogs in the yard. "No, I don't think anything about this has been normal. Maybe that's okay." The dogs integrated into their lives seamlessly. Atlas became Tommy's constant shadow, walking him to school, waiting outside until dismissal. Storm favored Sarah, lying by her feet while she worked on her laptop. Shadow and Luna patrolled the house and yard, an ever-vigilant security team. But they weren't just guards, they were family. One evening, as Sarah tucked Tommy into bed, he said something that stopped her cold. "Mom, Maria wasn't the first." "What do you mean?" "The first person to talk to me in dreams. There was someone before, when I was really little, a man. He said his name was Grandpa Joe. Sarah's father had died when she was pregnant with Tommy, Joseph Mitchell, who'd always insisted his grandchildren would call him Grandpa Joe. What did he say? That I was special, that I could help people, that someday someone would need me to listen very carefully." Tommy yawned. "I think he knew about Maria. I think he helped her find us." Sarah kissed his forehead, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The idea that her father had somehow orchestrated this from beyond, that he'd been watching over them. Atlas padded into the room, taking his usual spot beside Tommy's bed. The dog looked up at Sarah with those knowing eyes, and she could have sworn he nodded. Later, sitting in her kitchen with a cup of tea, Sarah thought about the strange tapestry of events that had brought them here. A social worker who documented crimes she couldn't stop. Dogs trained not just to protect, but to remember. A boy who could hear the voices others couldn't. A mother desperate enough to trust strangers with her child. Each thread had been necessary. Remove anyone, and the whole thing would have unraveled. Her phone buzzed, a text from Morrison. "Thought you should know, we found records of Maria visiting a psychic medium 2 years ago. The medium's notes mention a boy who would be able to hear her if something happened. The medium's name was Joseph Mitchell. Your maiden name is Mitchell, isn't it?" Sarah's hands shook. She Googled Joseph Mitchell psychic medium and found an obituary from 5 years ago. The man in the photo looked nothing like her father, but the obituary mentioned he had claimed to channel a spirit named Joseph, who was waiting for his grandson to be born. The connections were impossible, yet undeniable. She walked to the living room, where Storm was sprawled on the rug. The dog lifted his head as she approached, tail wagging gently. She sat beside him, burying her fingers in his thick fur. "You knew all along, didn't you?" she whispered. "All of you. You knew exactly where to bring Emma. You knew Tommy would understand." Storm's response was to rest his massive head on her lap, a gesture of such simple comfort that tears sprang to her eyes. Outside, a storm was building. Lightning flickered in the distance, and thunder rolled across the sky. But inside, Sarah felt safer than she ever had, protected not just by walls and locks, but by something deeper, a network of love that transcended death, species, and logic. Tommy appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Mom," the thunder woke me up. "Come here, baby." He curled up against her, and immediately the other dogs appeared. Atlas, Shadow, Luna, surrounding them in a circle of warmth and protection. "Are you scared?" Tommy asked. Sarah thought about it. A month ago, she would have been. A month ago, she was just a single mother working night shifts, trying to make ends meet, worrying about her son's social development and whether she was doing enough. Now, she was part of something larger, a guardian of secrets, a protector of innocence, a believer in impossible things. "No," she said, holding her son closer as the storm raged outside. "I'm not scared anymore." The dogs settled around them, alert even in rest. Whatever came next, and Sarah suspected this was far from over, they would face it together. The storm passed by morning, leaving the world washed clean and gleaming. Sarah woke on the couch, Tommy still curled against her, the dogs maintaining their vigil. Her phone showed dozens of messages, but she ignored them all. Today was Saturday. No work, no school, no obligations except to this strange family they'd become. She made breakfast, pancakes for Tommy, eggs for herself, and she'd learned the dogs preferred their kibble mixed with a bit of chicken broth. They ate together, the kitchen filled with comfortable silence and the occasional giggle when Luna tried to steal bacon from Tommy's plate. "Mom," Tommy said suddenly, syrup dripping from his chin. "Someone's coming." Sarah had learned to trust these pronouncements. Good or bad? Tommy tilted his head, listening to something only he could hear. Good, but sad. Very sad. An hour later, the doorbell rang. Atlas and Storm flanked Sarah as she answered it. A woman stood there, elderly but elegant, with eyes that had seen too much sorrow. "Mrs. Mitchell? My name is Dorothy Walker. I was Maria Hartley's mother." Sarah's breath caught. "Please, come in." Dorothy moved carefully, as if afraid she might break. The dog sniffed her, then stepped aside, accepting her immediately. "I've been following the news," Dorothy said, settling onto the couch. "What you've done, what you've uncovered. Maria would be so proud." "I'm so sorry for your loss," Sarah said, the words feeling inadequate. Dorothy's smile was bittersweet. "I knew something was wrong. Maria had been distant, scared. She wouldn't tell me what she was investigating, said it was too dangerous. The night she died, she called me. Said if anything happened, to wait for news about dogs and children, that I'd know when it was safe to come forward." She reached into her purse and pulled out a worn journal. This was Maria's, from when she was young, before she became a social worker. "I think you should read it." Sarah took the journal carefully. The first entry was dated 15 years ago. "I had the dream again. The one with the children crying and no one can hear them. But there's a boy. A special boy who listens. He's not born yet, but he will be. And when he is, I'll know. I'll know because the dogs will tell me." Sarah looked up at Dorothy. She'd been having visions for years. Dorothy nodded. Since she was 16, she knew things, saw things. It's why she became a social worker. She said she was meant to protect children, but that her biggest mission hadn't started yet. Tommy had been quiet, but now he moved closer to Dorothy. "She says thank you for believing in her." Dorothy's composure cracked. You can hear her?" "Not anymore. She's moved on, but she left messages. Lots of messages. For you." Tommy took the old woman's weathered hands in his small ones. "She says to look in the blue music box, the one from your mother. There's a false bottom," Dorothy gasped. "That music box has been in our family for generations. I never knew. She hid letters there. For you. She wrote them when she knew things were getting dangerous." Tommy's voice was gentle, older than his years. "She says she loves you, says you were the best mother she could have asked for, says to remember the butterflies." Dorothy sobbed then, pulling Tommy into a fierce hug. The butterfly garden. "When she was little, we planted a butterfly garden together. She said butterflies were proof that beautiful things could come from darkness." The dogs moved closer, forming their protective circle around the grieving woman and the extraordinary child. Sarah watched, tears streaming down her own face, as her son provided comfort with a gift she was only beginning to understand. They spent the day with Dorothy, looking through photos of Maria, sharing stories. The elderly woman had brought videos. Maria as a child, playing with dogs at a shelter. Maria at her college graduation, speaking about justice and protection. Maria at her first day as a social worker, nervous but determined. "She was always special," Dorothy said. "Even as a baby, she'd stare at empty spaces and laugh, like someone was playing with her. My mother said she had the sight. I thought it was just folklore, but now..." As the sun set, Dorothy prepared to leave. But first, she had one more thing to share. "There's something else. Maria had a storage unit. She gave me the key months ago, said not to open it unless something happened to her." She handed Sarah a small key. "Unit 237 at Secure Store on Madison. I think there might be more there, more children who need help." After Dorothy left, Sarah sat with the key, weighing their options. The official investigation was proceeding, but if Maria had hidden more evidence... "We should go tonight," Tommy said. "The dogs want to go." Sarah looked at the 4 German shepherds, all alert, all focused on the key in her hand. "All right, but we're being careful." They drove to the storage facility as darkness fell. The place was nearly deserted, just a bored security guard who barely looked up as Sarah signed in with the code Dorothy had provided. Unit 237 was in the back corner, isolated from the others. The dogs spread out as Sarah unlocked it, standing guard. Inside was a treasure trove of evidence, boxes of files, photographs, recordings. But what drew Tommy immediately was a large map on the wall, covered in red pins. "Every pin is a child," he said, not a question. Sarah studied the map. There were dozens of pins spreading across multiple states. Some had strings connecting them to photos on the wall. Children who'd been found, but too many pins stood alone. She was tracking them all, Sarah breathed, not just the recent ones. Years of missing children. A laptop sat on a desk in the corner. When Sarah opened it, it was already logged in. A video file paused on the screen. She hit play. Maria appeared, looking exhausted but determined. The timestamp showed it was recorded a week before her death. "If you're watching this, then you found the storage unit. Good. This is everything I couldn't keep at home or work. Every child I've tracked, every lead I've followed. Some of these cases go back a decade. The network is older and bigger than anyone realizes. I've identified pattern points, hospitals, clinics, even some private practices where children regularly disappear. The authorities won't listen because many of these children are undocumented or from families that don't have the resources to fight. But here's what I've discovered. They're not just selling babies. Some of these children are being selected for specific traits, intelligence markers, genetic profiles, even other abilities. There's a buyer in Switzerland who specifically requests children who show signs of what they call enhanced perception. Another in Japan who wants children with specific genetic markers for longevity. This isn't just human trafficking, it's something worse. They're treating children like breeding stock, like experiments. I've been in contact with a reporter from the Washington Post. Her name is Catherine Chen. If something happens to me, she has copies of everything. But she needs more proof, needs a living witness who can verify the evidence. Please, these children don't have anyone else. Don't let my work die with me. The video ended. Sarah stood frozen, the magnitude of what Maria had uncovered washing over her. This wasn't just about Dale and his local ring. This was international, organized, horrifying. Atlas barked once, sharp and urgent. Through the window, Sarah saw headlights approaching, a black sedan, moving slowly through the facility. "Hide," she whispered to Tommy, pushing him behind a stack of boxes. But the dogs had other plans. They moved toward the door, bodies tense, ready. The sedan stopped outside Unit 237. 2 men got out, both in dark suits, moving with professional precision. "Federal agents," one called out. "We know you're in there. We're not here to hurt you. Maria Hartley sent us." Sarah felt Tommy's hand in hers. "It's okay," he whispered. "Maria says they're good. The tall one is Agent Brooks. He tried to help her before." Still, Sarah kept Tommy behind her as she opened the door. The dogs formed a barrier between them and the agents. The taller man held up his FBI badge slowly, making no sudden movements. "Agent Brooks, this is Agent Martinez. We've been investigating the trafficking ring for 3 years. Maria was our informant." "Why didn't you protect her?" Sarah's voice was sharp with accusation. Brooks's face tightened with pain. "We tried." She refused protective custody, said it would tip them off. She insisted on gathering more evidence. By the time we realized they were onto her. "It was too late," Martinez finished. "We've been watching you since the bridge incident. We knew Maria had contingencies, but we didn't know what they were." "The dogs," Brooks said, looking at the 4 shepherds with something like awe. She trained them to continue her mission. "And the boy," she mentioned someone who could hear things others couldn't. Tommy stepped out from behind Sarah. "You have a daughter," he said to Brooks. "Maria says to tell you she's safe. The people who threatened her don't know where you live." Brooks went pale. "How could you?" "We've never told anyone about the threats." "Maria heard them planning," Tommy said simply. "She made sure your family was protected before she died." Martinez knelt down, bringing himself to Tommy's eye level. "What else can you tell us?" Tommy looked at the agents for a long moment, then at the dogs, as if consulting with them. "There's a ship coming. Tomorrow night, Port of Seattle, container 47B. 3 children from Guatemala. The buyer is already here, staying at the Fairmont under the name Peterson." Brooks was already on his phone, relaying the information. Martinez stayed focused on Tommy. "How do you know this?" "The dogs know. They heard the men talking when they came to hurt Maria. Dogs remember everything. It was impossible, yet Sarah had learned that impossible had become their new normal. "We need everything in this storage unit," Brooks said. "But more than that, we may need you to testify. Not about the supernatural elements," he added quickly, seeing Sarah's expression, "but about finding Emma, about Dale, about what you've discovered." "What about protection?" Sarah asked. "If this is as big as Maria said, witness protection, new identities if necessary," Martinez assured her. "But honestly, after the media attention you've received, you might be safer in the public eye. It's harder to disappear someone everyone's watching." They worked through the night, cataloging evidence, copying files. The agents were thorough but respectful, understanding they were handling Maria's life work. As dawn broke, Tommy suddenly stood up from where he'd been sitting with the dogs. "We need to go to the port. Now." Brooks looked at his watch. "The ship doesn't arrive until tonight." "No," Tommy insisted. "There's another one." Maria didn't know about it, but the dogs can smell something wrong. Sarah had learned to trust her son's instincts. "We're going." The convoy that headed to the port was surreal. Sarah's car with Tommy and the dogs, followed by multiple FBI vehicles. They arrived to find the port bustling with normal morning activity. The dogs led them to a container that had arrived the night before, scheduled for pickup that afternoon. Atlas scratched at the door while Luna howled, a sound that made dock workers stop and stare. Brooks called for a warrant, but Tommy shook his head. "There's no time. Listen." In the silence between machinery, they heard it, crying, children crying. Brooks made the call to breach for emergency rescue. When they opened the container, they found 5 children, ages 3 to 8, huddled in the dark with minimal food and water. They'd been in there for 2 days. The children were from various Central American countries, all reported as dead in natural disasters or accidents. The paperwork was sophisticated, the planning meticulous. Without the dogs, without Tommy's strange gift, they would have disappeared forever. As medics tended to the children, one of them, a girl about 6, reached for Luna. The dog went to her immediately, letting the child bury her face in her fur. "She says the dogs are angels," a translator relayed. "Says she prayed for angels and they came." Tommy stood beside them, his small hand on Luna's back. "Maria sent them," he said, though only Sarah heard him. "She's still protecting them, even now." The bust at the port led to 17 arrests and the rescue of 12 more children from various locations. The network started to crumble, each arrest leading to more information, more connections. But there was a cost. The cost became clear 3 days after the port rescue. Sarah woke to find Tommy standing at his bedroom window, all 4 dogs surrounding him in a protective circle. His small body was rigid, his eyes unfocused. "Tommy?" She touched his shoulder gently. He was burning with fever. "Too many," he whispered. "Too many voices. They all want help." Sarah's blood ran cold. The media coverage of the port rescue had gone national, then international. Stories of the boy who could hear the dead, who helped the FBI find trafficked children. And now, it seemed, every lost soul was trying to reach him. Atlas whined, pressing closer to Tommy. The dog's eyes met Sarah's, and the message was clear. Something was wrong. "Baby, look at me." Sarah turned Tommy to face her. His pupils were dilated, his breathing shallow. "Who's talking to you?" "Everyone," Tommy said, tears streaming down his face. "All the children who never made it home. All the mothers who lost babies. They know I can hear them. They won't stop." Sarah called Morrison immediately. Within an hour, their house was filled with people. Morrison, the FBI agents, Dr. Patricia Wong, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma, and, surprisingly, Dorothy Walker. "This happened to Maria once," Dorothy said, watching as doctor. Wong examined Tommy. "When she was 15, she called it the awakening. Too many spirits trying to communicate at once. It nearly killed her. What stopped it? Sarah asked desperately. She learned to build walls, mental barriers, but she had years to develop that skill. Tommy's just a child. Dr. Wong finished her examination, her expression grave. His temperature is 103. His neural activity is off the charts. If we can't find a way to calm this, his system could shut down. Brooks stepped forward. We can limit media exposure, create a blackout around him. It's too late for that, Dorothy interrupted. Once the gift is fully activated, physical distance doesn't matter. They'll find him wherever he is. Storm suddenly barked, moving to the front door. Through the window, Sarah saw people gathering outside. Not reporters this time, parents. Dozens of them, holding photos of missing children. Please, one woman called out. My daughter disappeared 5 years ago. If he could just try... We need to get him somewhere quiet, Doctor, Wong said. Somewhere he can focus. But Tommy shook his head weakly. Won't help. They're not outside. They're in here. He tapped his temple. Maria's trying to help, but she's not strong enough anymore. She used too much energy guiding us. Luna padded over to Tommy and did something unexpected. She howled, a long, mournful sound that seemed to vibrate through the walls. Atlas, Storm, and Shadow joined in, their voices creating a harmony that made everyone stop. And Tommy's breathing eased. The dogs, Dorothy breathed. Of course. Maria trained them to be psychic shields. That's why they were always with her during investigations. The dogs continued their song, and color returned to Tommy's face. But Sarah could see the strain in their bodies, the effort it was taking. It's temporary, Tommy said, his voice stronger but still weak. They can't do this forever. Morrison's phone rang. She answered, her face growing increasingly grim. There's been a development. 3 more container ships have been flagged, all arriving tonight at different ports. The network knows we're onto them. They're accelerating their timeline. Brooks cursed. They're going to move all the children at once and disappear. Tommy tried to stand, but his legs buckled. Atlas caught him, the dog's strong body keeping the boy upright. I can find them, Tommy said, but I need help. Absolutely not, Sarah said. You're too weak. Mom, if I don't, dozens of children will disappear forever. Maria didn't die for me to hide when things got hard. Dr. Wong pulled Sarah aside. I don't like this, but he has a point. The psychological damage of knowing he could have helped, but didn't, might be worse than the physical strain. You're talking about my 5-year-old son like he's some kind of soldier, Sarah snapped. No, Dr. Wong said gently. I'm talking about him like he's a child with an extraordinary gift who's already made his choice. Our job is to support him as safely as possible. They created a makeshift command center in Sarah's living room. Tommy sat in the center, surrounded by the dogs. Dr. Wong monitored his vitals, while Dorothy coached him on focusing techniques Maria had written about. Don't reach out, Dorothy instructed. Let them come to you. And only listen to the ones who can help with tonight. Tommy closed his eyes, the dog's breathing synchronized with his, creating a rhythm that filled the room. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then Tommy gasped. Port of Long Beach, container ship Marisol, Deck 7, container marked agricultural equipment, 8 children from Honduras. Brooks relayed the information, another gasp from Tommy. Port of Houston, 2 trucks, not ships. They're moving them by land to avoid port security. License plates. He rattled off numbers that Martinez frantically recorded. Port of Miami, but that's a decoy. The real children are already on a yacht, heading for international waters. For an hour, Tommy provided intelligence that would have taken law enforcement weeks to gather. Each revelation drained him more, his small body shaking with effort. The dogs pressed closer, their own exhaustion showing. Then Tommy screamed. It was a sound of pure terror that made everyone freeze. His eyes snapped open, pupils completely dilated. He's here. The man who killed Maria. He's here. Sarah grabbed her son. Where? Where is he? Outside. He's been watching. He knows what I can do. He wants to... Tommy's words cut off as every light in the house went out. The dogs erupted into motion. Atlas and Storm charged toward the back door. Shadow positioned himself at the stairs. Luna stayed with Tommy, her growl so deep it seemed to come from the earth itself. Glass shattered in the kitchen. Smoke began filling the house. Not fire smoke, but something chemical that made Sarah's eyes water. "Tear gas!" Brooks shouted. "Everyone out!" But the front door wouldn't budge. Someone had barricaded it from outside. Morrison was on her radio calling for backup, but static was all that came through. They were being jammed. A figure appeared in the smoke, tall, thin, wearing a gas mask. He held something in his hand, a gun, but not aimed at them. It was aimed at a small device. "Dead man's switch," he said, his voice muffled but familiar. "One move from the FBI and this whole house goes up. Amazing what you can do with some fertilizer and the right knowledge." Sarah recognized the voice now. Dr. Nathan Cross from the hospital. He'd been on duty the night several babies had disappeared. "You," she breathed. "Me," Cross agreed. The good doctor everyone trusted. "Maria figured it out, you know. Too smart for her own good. But you," he looked at Tommy. "You're something special. The buyers would pay millions for a child who can speak to the dead." Atlas lunged from the shadows, but Cross shifted his aim to Tommy. The dog stopped, intelligence warring with instinct. "That's right," Cross said. "You understand. All of you do. Maria trained you well, but she's gone, and the boy is coming with me." "Over my dead body," Sarah snarled. "That can be arranged." Tommy stood up, swaying slightly. The fever had broken, but left him weak. "You're scared," he said to Cross. "Maria's been visiting you, hasn't she? Every night since you killed her." Cross's hand trembled slightly. "Shut up." "She stands at the foot of your bed, shows you the faces of all the children you sold. You haven't slept in months." "I said shut up." "She wants me to tell you something," Tommy continued, his voice gaining strength. "She forgives you." Cross froze. "What?" "She forgives you. She says you were broken by your own childhood. Your mother sold you when you were 7. You got lucky, got adopted by rich people, became a doctor, but the anger never left. The gun wavered. Behind Cross, Sarah saw Shadow creeping closer. "She says to tell you about Benjamin." Cross made a sound like he'd been punched. "How do you know that name?" "Your son. The one who died. That's when you started. You thought if you could control which children lived and died, you'd have power over death itself." "Stop." Cross's voice broke. "Benjamin is here too," Tommy said softly. "He says he never blamed you. Says the cancer wasn't your fault. Says he's been trying to tell you for years, but you couldn't hear him." The gun dropped an inch. It was enough. Shadow struck from behind, jaws closing on Cross's wrist. The gun and device flew in different directions. Atlas body slammed Cross to the ground, while Storm secured the dead man's switch, carrying it gently outside. FBI agents flooded in through windows and the back door. Cross was screaming, but not in pain. He was sobbing, reaching for something only he could see. "Benjamin," he kept saying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." They evacuated the house while the bomb squad dealt with the explosives. Cross had rigged enough to level half the block. If Tommy hadn't broken. Through his defenses, if the dogs hadn't acted with perfect timing. Sarah held Tommy in the back of an ambulance while medics checked him over. The dogs refused to leave, arranging themselves around the vehicle like sentries. "How did you know?" she asked. "About his son?" Tommy leaned against her, exhaustion making him look even younger than his 5 years. "Maria knew. She investigated everyone at the hospital after the first baby disappeared. She found out about Benjamin, figured out that's what broke Dr. Cross. She tried to help him once, but he was too far gone." Morrison approached, her expression a mix of awe and concern. "The intel you provided was good. We've intercepted all 3 ships and the yacht. 43 children recovered, the biggest rescue in FB1 history. But," Sarah could hear the reservation in her voice, "but now everyone knows what Tommy can do. Not just locally, globally. There are already conspiracy websites, religious groups calling him a prophet, scientists wanting to study him. We can protect you," Brooks added, joining them. "Witness protection, new identities." "No." Tommy's voice was firm. "If I hide, other children die. Maria didn't hide." "Maria died," Sarah said sharply. Tommy looked at her with those 2 old eyes. "But her work didn't. Because she made sure someone would continue it. Me, the dogs, you." Before Sarah could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number, but something made her answer. "Mrs. Mitchell?" The voice was cultured, European. "My name is Dmitry Volkov. I represent certain interests that have been inconvenienced by recent events." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She put the phone on speaker, gesturing for Brooks to trace it. "What do you want?" "Simply to make you an offer. Your son has a remarkable gift. We could help him develop it, train him properly, compensate you beyond your wildest dreams." "Go to hell," Volkov chuckled. "I expected that response. But consider this. We know where you live, where you work, where Tommy goes to school. We know your routines, your weaknesses. The FBI can't protect you forever." Atlas growled, as if he could hear the threat through the phone. "But we're not unreasonable," Volkov continued. "We propose a trade. Your son provides information about our competitors, other trafficking rings, criminals who prey on children. In exchange, we leave you alone and even provide information about children who need rescue. You want to use my son to eliminate your competition? Think of it as redirecting his gift toward a greater good. We're businessmen, Mrs. Mitchell, not monsters. We deal in willing transactions. The others, the ones like Cross, they're the real evil." Tommy took the phone from his mother's hand. "Mr. Volkov, Maria has a message for you." Silence on the other end. "She says the warehouse in Prague, the one you think is secret. The FBI will find it tomorrow unless you release the children there tonight." "This is a trick." "She also says to check your left jacket pocket, the one you're wearing now." They heard rustling, then a sharp intake of breath. "That's impossible. This photo was destroyed." "Nothing's ever really destroyed," Tommy said. "The children in that photo remember you. They remember what you did. And if you don't let the Prague children go, everyone will remember." The line went dead. Brooks stared at Tommy. "What photo?" "I don't know," Tommy admitted. "Maria just told me to say it, but he's scared now. He'll release them." Sure enough, within hours, anonymous tips led Czech authorities to 17 children locked in a warehouse outside Prague. The children reported their captors had fled in panic, leaving doors open. But the victory felt hollow. They'd revealed Tommy's power to dangerous people. The threats would only multiply. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat in Tommy's room, watching him breathe, the dogs arranged around his bed like guardian angels. How could she protect him from something this big? A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Lisa stood there with baby Emma in her arms. "I heard what happened," Lisa said. "I wanted to help, but I didn't know how." Sarah invited her in. They sat together in the dim room, two mothers bound by extraordinary circumstances. "I've been thinking," Lisa said, "about Maria, about what she built. It shouldn't die with her. What are you suggesting?" "A foundation, in Maria's name, to continue her work, support families whose children have been taken, train more dogs like these 4. She looked at the German shepherds. "And maybe to protect children like Tommy, children with gifts that make them targets." Sarah felt something shift in her chest. Hope, maybe? That's a big undertaking. "Dorothy Walker wants to help. She has money from Maria's life insurance. And the FBI agents Brooks and Martinez. They're interested. They say there are other children like Tommy scattered around the world. Children who see things, know things. Right now, they're vulnerable." Tommy stirred in his sleep. "Yes," he murmured, though his eyes stayed closed. "Maria says yes." Over the next month, the Maria Hartley Foundation took shape. Dorothy provided initial funding. Lisa managed operations with the fierce determination of a mother who'd almost lost everything. Brooks and Martinez offered unofficial FBI support, creating a network of law enforcement allies. But most importantly, they found others like Tommy. There was Aisha in Detroit, 7 years old, who drew pictures of missing children and could locate them within a 50-mile radius. Marcus in Phoenix, 9, who heard the last words of murder victims. Lily in Boston, 6, who knew when someone was lying with absolute certainty. Each child was gifted. Each was vulnerable. Each had parents as bewildered and frightened as Sarah had been. They brought them together for the first time on a cold December morning, 3 months after the bridge incident. The meeting was held at a renovated farmhouse outside the city, purchased by the foundation as a safe haven. The children recognized each other immediately, not with their eyes, but with something deeper. They gravitated together like magnets, the dogs weaving between them, tails wagging. "You hear them too," Aisha said to Tommy. He nodded. "Do they ever stop?" "When I paint," she said. "It goes quiet when I paint what they show me." Marcus, older and more guarded, stood apart until Storm approached him. The dog sat at his feet, patient and calm. "How do you not go crazy?" Marcus asked Tommy. "The dogs help. And knowing I'm helping them find peace." Lily, the youngest after Tommy, clung to her mother's hand. But when Luna approached, she let go, burying her small fingers in the dog's fur. "She says you're safe," Lily whispered to her mother. "All of us are safe here." Dr. Wong had agreed to work with the children, teaching them meditation techniques, boundaries, ways to control their gifts rather than be controlled by them. "Think of it like a radio," she explained. "Right now, you're picking up all frequencies at once. We're going to teach you to tune in to one station at a time." The parents formed their own support group, sharing fears and strategies. Sarah found herself becoming a mentor, teaching them what she'd learned about trusting their children's impossible knowledge while still protecting their childhood. But the threats hadn't disappeared. If anything, they'd multiplied. The Foundation's computers were hacked weekly. Cars followed them. Strange packages arrived with no return address. The FBI provided security, but everyone knew it was a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in January. Sarah was cooking dinner when Tommy walked into the kitchen, his face pale. All 4 dogs were with him, agitated. "Mom, something bad is coming." Before she could respond, her phone rang. Dorothy's number. "Sarah, they took Lisa and Emma." The world tilted. "What? When?" "An hour ago. She was leaving the Foundation office. Witnesses saw a van, but..." Dorothy's voice broke. "The police found her car." There was blood. Tommy was already at the table, paper and crayons spread out. His hand moved without hesitation, drawing a warehouse, water nearby, a sign partially visible. "Pier 47, he said. "But it's a trap. They want me to come." Sarah's phone buzzed. A video message. Lisa was tied to a chair, Emma crying in her arms. A masked figure stood behind them. "You have something we want," the figure said. "The boy. Bring him to Pier 47 at midnight, alone, or they die." "We're calling the FBI," Sarah said, but Tommy shook his head. "They have people in the FBI. If we call, Lisa and Emma die." "Then what do we do?" Tommy looked at the dogs, then at his mother. "We spring the trap, but we do it our way." The plan was insane, but it was also brilliant in the way only a child's plan could be. At 11:30 p.m., Sarah drove toward Pier 47 with Tommy in the back seat. But they weren't alone. The dogs ran alongside the car, invisible in the darkness. And they weren't the only ones. Every child from the Foundation was connected, their gifts focused on a single purpose. Aisha drew what she saw through Tommy's eyes, her pictures instantly photographed and sent to Brooks and Martinez, who were operating outside official channels. Marcus listened for the last words of anyone who died near the pier, gathering intelligence about the building's layout. Lily monitored the phone calls of suspected traffickers, her gift for detecting lies invaluable. They were children, but they were also an army. Sarah parked outside the warehouse. It looked abandoned, but Tommy could feel the presence inside. 12 men, all armed. Lisa and Emma in the center, bait for a trap that went deeper than just kidnapping. "They want to study me," Tommy said. "Figure out how my gift works, then sell it to the highest bidder, over my dead body." That's their plan too. They got out of the car. The dogs melted into the shadows, taking positions Tommy had shown them on Aisha's drawings. The warehouse door opened. The masked figure from the video stood there, weapon visible but not raised. "Just the boy," he said. "No," Sarah stepped forward. "We do this together or not at all." The figure laughed. "You're hardly in a position to negotiate." "Actually, I am." Sarah held up her phone. "Live streaming to 50,000 followers. Anything happens to us, the world watches." It was a bluff. The phone was recording, but not streaming. But Lily, back at the Foundation, had confirmed the lie would work. The kidnapper believed in the power of social media more than he believed in his own plan. "Fine, both of you, but no tricks." They entered the warehouse. Lisa was there, tied but alert, Emma sleeping in her arms. The relief on her face when she saw them was heartbreaking. "I'm sorry," Lisa whispered. They knew about the foundation, knew I was alone. "It's not your fault," Sarah said, moving toward her. "Stop." Another masked figure emerged from the shadows, this one smaller, female. First, the boy demonstrates his gift. "What do you want to know?" Tommy asked, his voice steady. "Tell us about the dead. Prove you can speak to them." Tommy closed his eyes. The warehouse grew cold, though no wind blew. When he opened them again, his pupils were dilated, his voice different. "Angela Martinez died in this warehouse 3 years ago. You killed her because she tried to escape. She says her daughter still waits for her to come home." The female figure stepped back. "How could you?" "David Chen died here last year. You sold his organs. He wants his mother to know he didn't run away. He was taken from the bus stop, the blue one near the park." "Stop. Rebecca Thompson, age 7. You kept her here for 2 weeks before she got sick. You dumped her body in the bay, but she wants you to know she's still here. They're all still here, waiting." The temperature dropped further. Frost formed on the windows. The kidnappers looked around nervously. "It's a trick," the first figure said, but his voice shook. "No trick," Tommy said. "They've been waiting for justice. And now they have a voice." The lights flickered. Wind howled through the warehouse despite the still night outside. And then the dogs struck. Atlas came through a window, glass shattering around him. Storm and Shadow burst through side doors the kidnappers hadn't properly secured. Luna appeared from above, having climbed to the rafters through a hole in the roof. But the dogs weren't attacking. They were herding, driving the kidnappers toward the center of the warehouse where Tommy stood. "You have a choice," Tommy said, and his voice carried the weight of every child who died in this place. "Confess everything. Every child you've taken, every buyer you've sold to, every official you've bribed, or stay here with them." The warehouse filled with shadows that shouldn't exist, whispers in languages the kidnappers didn't recognize. The temperature dropped so low, their breath came out in clouds. "This is impossible," the female figure gasped. "So is stealing children and thinking you'll never pay for it," Sarah said, untying Lisa with steady hands. The first figure broke. All right, I'll tell you everything. Just make it stop." Tommy blinked, and the warehouse returned to normal. The shadows receded, the temperature rose, the whispers faded, but the dogs remained, teeth bared, ready. "Start talking," Tommy said. The confession that followed exposed a network spanning 12 countries. Names, dates, locations, financial records. The kidnapper had kept meticulous records, believing himself untouchable. He gave it all up, desperate to escape the warehouse and its invisible inhabitants. Brooks and Martinez arrived with backup just as the confession ended. They'd been listening through Sarah's phone, recording everything. The arrests were swift, efficient. But as the kidnappers were led away, the female figure turned back. "You think you've won? There are others. There will always be others. And now they all know about the boy." Tommy looked at her with pity. "I know, but now I know about them too, and I'm not alone anymore." The ride home was quiet. Lisa held Emma in the back seat, tears streaming down her face. The dogs ran alongside the car, their job done, but their vigilance never ending. "Thank you," Lisa whispered. "Thank you for saving us." "We saved each other," Sarah said, catching Tommy's eye in the mirror. "That's what family does." The next morning brought a media storm. The warehouse confession had leaked, despite FBI efforts to contain it. The Maria Hartley Foundation was thrust into the spotlight, their safe house no longer safe. "We need to relocate," Morrison said in an emergency meeting. "All the families. The attention is too dangerous." But Dorothy Walker stood up, her aged frame, straight with determination. "No, we run now. We run forever. It's time to stop hiding." "You're suggesting we make ourselves targets?" one parent asked. "I'm suggesting we make ourselves untouchable," Dorothy replied. "Full transparency, regular media updates, public support. Let the world see these children as heroes, not commodities." It was risky, but it was also brilliant. The press conference was held a week later. Sarah stood at the podium, Tommy beside her, the dogs at their feet. The other families flanked them, united in purpose. "My son has a gift," Sarah began, her voice carrying across the crowded room. "A gift that makes him valuable to those who traffic in human misery. But his gift also makes him powerful. Powerful enough to find the lost, speak for the dead, and bring justice to those who thought they were untouchable. She looked directly into the cameras. To those who would harm our children, know this: they are not alone. They have each other. They have us. And they have the truth on their side. Tommy stepped forward, small for his age, but his presence filled the room. Maria Hartley died protecting children, but her work continues, through us, through anyone who refuses to let evil win. He paused, his eyes unfocusing slightly. She wants me to tell you something. All of you watching, every missing child leaves a trace. Every crime leaves a mark. And now we can see those traces. We can follow those marks. We will find them, all of them. The room erupted with questions, but Sarah was watching Tommy. He swayed slightly and she caught him before he fell. "Too many again?" she whispered. He shook his head. "No. But Maria's leaving now. Really leaving. She says her work is done. We have to do the rest ourselves." That night, Sarah found Tommy in the backyard with the dogs. They sat in their familiar circle, but something was different, peaceful. "She's gone, isn't she?" Sarah asked. Tommy nodded. "But she left something behind. In all of us. The knowledge that one person can make a difference, that good people finding each other can change everything." Atlas raised his head and howled, a sound both mournful and triumphant. The other dogs joined in, their voices carrying across the neighborhood, across the city, a declaration that the guardians were still watching. 6 months later, the Maria Hartley Foundation had offices in 12 cities. The network of gifted children had grown to 30, each protected, trained, and supported. They'd recovered over 200 missing children, exposed 8 trafficking rings, and brought justice to families who'd given up hope. But more importantly, they'd changed the conversation. These children weren't freaks or commodities. They were heroes. Tommy stood in the foundation's main office, looking at a wall covered with photos of recovered children. Each one a life saved, a family reunited. "You did this," Sarah said, standing beside him. "We did this," he corrected. "All of us. Even Maria." The dogs padded over, older now but still strong. They'd trained 20 more dogs in their methods, creating a network of 4-legged guardians who could sense danger, protect the innocent, and somehow bridge the gap between the living and the dead. "Mom," Tommy said suddenly, "someone's coming." Sarah tensed, but Tommy was smiling. "Someone good." The door opened and a young woman entered, holding the hand of a boy about Tommy's age. The child's eyes were unfocused, seeing something beyond the room. "My son," the woman said hesitantly. "He says he can hear them, the ones who've passed. He says a lady named Maria told him to find you." Tommy walked over to the boy, Atlas beside him. "She told me you'd come, said your name is James." The boy nodded, tears streaming down his face. "They won't stop talking." "I know," Tommy said, taking his hand. "But we can teach you to listen, to help them, to help everyone." Sarah watched her son, no longer the frightened 5-year-old who'd found a baby on a bridge. He was 6 now, but aged beyond his years by purpose and pain and triumph. "Every child we save saves another," Tommy said, echoing words Maria had spoken in dreams. "Every family reunited makes us stronger. Every truth revealed makes the darkness smaller." He looked at the camera that was always recording now, documenting their work for transparency and protection. If you're watching this and you've lost someone, don't give up. If you have a gift that frightens you, you're not alone. If you think one person can't make a difference, remember Maria Hartley. Remember that 4 dogs and a 5-year-old boy brought down an international trafficking ring. He paused, his young voice carrying the weight of ancient wisdom. Remember that love is stronger than evil. Always. The sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of hope. Somewhere, children were being rescued. Somewhere, families were reuniting. Somewhere, Maria Hartley's spirit, finally at peace, smiled at what her sacrifice had wrought. The dogs stood guard, as they always would. The children learned and grew, their gifts becoming weapons against darkness. And Sarah Mitchell, who'd once been just a tired nurse driving home from a night shift, held her extraordinary son and knew that sometimes the most impossible things were the most true. The bridge where it all began had become a memorial, People left flowers, toys, photos of children who'd been found. A plaque read, "For Maria Hartley, who heard the cries others ignored. For the children who were lost and are now found. For the dogs who guard the innocent. And for everyone who believes that one voice can change the world." Tommy visited sometimes, the dogs always with him. He'd stand at the spot where they'd found Emma, where his life had changed forever, and listen. Not to the dead anymore, that chorus had quieted as justice was served, but to the living, to the heartbeat of a city learning to protect its most vulnerable. "What do you hear?" Sarah asked him once. "Hope," he said simply. "I hear hope." And in that moment, with the sun rising over the bridge, the dog standing sentinel, and her impossible, extraordinary son beside her, Sarah heard it too. The story of the 4 German shepherds who cried on a bridge had become legend, but the real story, of children with gifts, of mothers who'd fight heaven and earth for their babies, of dogs trained by a dead woman to continue her mission, that story was just beginning. Every day brought new challenges, every night brought new dreams. But Tommy, Sarah, the dogs, and their ever-growing family of gifted children and desperate parents faced them together. Because Maria Hartley had taught them the most important lesson of all: evil thrives in silence and isolation. But when good people find each other, when they refuse to be silent, when they stand together despite the danger, miracles happen. 4 dogs crying on a bridge had started it all. But love, courage, and the unbreakable bond between those who protect the innocent would finish it. The war against those who trafficked in children would never truly end. There would always be predators, always be vulnerable families, always be those who saw children as commodities rather than miracles. But now, they had something they'd never had before. They had an army of children who could see through lies, hear the dead, find the lost, and know the truth. They had dogs trained not just to protect, but to remember, to recognize evil, and to guard the innocent with their lives. They had parents who'd learned that impossible wasn't a limitation, but an invitation to believe in something greater. And they had the legacy of Maria Hartley, a social worker who'd refused to let death stop her from saving children. As Tommy stood at the window of the foundation, watching new families arrive seeking help, he felt Maria's presence one last time, not speaking, not guiding, just approving. "Thank you," he whispered. The dogs gathered around him, their warmth a living reminder that some bonds transcend death, some purposes outlive their creators, and some missions are too important to ever truly end. Outside, another child with an impossible gift was walking toward their door. Another family desperate for answers. Another chance to turn tragedy into triumph. Tommy smiled, his hand resting on Atlas's head. "Let's go help them," he said. And they did. Because that's what guardians do. They guard, they protect, they remember. And they never, ever give up. The 4 German shepherds who'd cried on a bridge had known this truth. They'd carried it in their bones, in their training, in the love Maria had poured into them. Now that truth lived on in every child saved, every family reunited, every trafficker brought to justice. It lived on in Tommy's gift, terrible and beautiful in equal measure. It lived on in Sarah's fierce maternal love that had expanded to encompass not just her son, but every child who needed protection. It lived on in the foundation that bore Maria's name and carried her mission forward. But most of all, it lived on in the simple, powerful fact that when 4 dogs cried on a bridge, someone stopped to listen. And that made all the difference. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Together, we can be the voice for those who cannot speak, the guardians for those who need protection, and the hope for those who have lost everything. Share where you're watching from, and remember, every child matters, every story deserves to be heard. And sometimes, the most extraordinary things begin with something as simple as stopping to help.